Hi, Jamie here. I wanted to make a video today to share some tips that I have for working with your hypnagogic imagery. The hypnagogic state is that in-between state before sleep where you start seeing images before your eyes. And in my experience, and I know from talking to a lot of people, that these kinds of images can go from all extremes, from something so incredibly fuzzy and vague, you kind of think you see it, but you don't know for sure, to, crystal clear, like a movie photograph, or even like some of you, full-blown movies. So there is a full spectrum, and I really believe that every single one of that spectrum is valid in terms of information being given. And so I wanted to share, I have 5 tips for you working with your hypnagogic imagery. So, and I think this is a really cool practice to have because for me, it's a little bit easier than astral projection practice. Man, astral projection practice can really take its toll. And so to have this kind of in the back burner, just to be able to work with that first image, the first images too, is really cool, in my opinion, to kind of supplement. So my first tip is to go into the state being very, very specific. I have not used the state as like an access point for communication knowingly yet, except for the one time that I had that direct contact with gray aliens that I discussed in my previous video. I have not fully consciously done that yet because I'm still working with trying to hone the skill for myself, but I do believe it is and can be an access point for direct communication. But I also believe that it's a place where we can access the collective unconscious. And so that's more along the lines of what I'm doing with it right now. So for me, it's being very specific. A lot of times if I go into the state not really sure what I want answered, my answer will be strange and not anything that is very helpful. So be specific with the request, and I mean very specific. If you want to know, gosh, there's just so many possibilities. If you want to know when something might take place, psychic information, you need to be very clear about specifically what you want. So yeah, there was once where I was very vague about what I was asking, and I was thinking about a friend of mine and wanting to connect with him and his future success, and then all of a sudden I moved into the future of the planet, and I was very vague, and when I got in there, I got a lot of information about July and other things that just didn't really add up, and so July came and went and nothing really took place. So anyways, that's my first tip, be very specific. Number 2 for me is to use the indirect method, but light. So, I think a lot of us think that we need to move into this state more directly, kind of like keeping our conscious awareness the entire time. And some of us can do that, and that's wonderful. But for me, what's been really successful is to move into the state using the indirect method, but very light. So what happens is that I know that I've trained my subconscious to know that I will become lucid, and I move into sleep state with that in the back of my mind and my subconscious, and then I will pick up my consciousness at a certain point and look back on and say, I just saw something, like I just heard something. What was that about? Let's go back in time and think about what was that I just heard, and then pick up from there that information and go from there. That to me is the most successful way to do this. To kind of because then what happens is you're already in your subconscious, you're in that state, you've dropped your consciousness, but you bring it back. So it's a lot like being in a lucid dream, but in my opinion, it's obviously like a closer state. And then at that point, it's just a lot easier to hang on to the content, whatever that may be, words, images, and then you can kind of shape it a little bit more, if that makes sense. Okay, so number 3 is to trust the information that you're given. And this is so crucial because I think a lot of people think things or see things or, get psychic information in all sorts of different ways. But they just simply dismiss it. Like, that's just ridiculous. Why did I see a horse with wings, and they are quick to dismiss it. And that's the quick fail. And so trust everything. Trust the full spectrum. Even though it's not a full photograph, still trust it because it is information. And I believe, just like dreams, it's really about the analysis. That's where things get tricky. So be critical of the information, but still trust the information coming in. And your process for analyzing it is, I'm still working on that. I think working with symbols and working with symbology is the best way to do this. Sometimes I hear a lot of words that are very clearly outside of myself, sentences that are very clearly outside of myself, and I keep track of that information in a journal. And I've been working on verifying these things in their own way. It's very, very new in my own practice, but it's been really interesting. So I don't know from there. So then my fourth tip is to use symbols and to use, to look at the images that you get as symbols first. Because if you can look at it as a symbol and still in your heart and in your gut think, okay, I'm looking at it as a symbol, but I still think that there's a little bit more to it. It's a little bit more meaty and it might be a little bit more waking reality based. That's when you know that you've flushed out the symbol. Like, for instance, like if I asked for a time frame on something and I got a Christmas tree image in my head, I would first look at it as a symbol and think about, okay, well, Christmas and birth and Christ and all sorts of things. But if those things don't really mesh well or feel well with me, that's when I would move into, okay, maybe I'm talking about a time frame of Christmas, like an actual time frame of Christmas. So to me, first do symbols, then do more direct analysis. And lastly, my last tip is don't be afraid to be wrong. So important, because you will be. And again, I really believe it's not about the information, it's about the way that we're analyzing it. So this information is important. It's coming to us and we're using it just like anything else. But we need to just not be afraid to be wrong. So I know I surround myself with a few individuals that I'm so grateful to have, where I can bounce these things back and forth from them with knowing in my heart that I won't be chastised if I'm wrong. Like, oh, that doesn't seem right, or thanks for, checking in on that, but I don't know, They go, okay, and then kind of go back, because it's a practice. It's a practice, just like astral projection and just like a lot of these things. So just don't be afraid to be wrong. Put yourself out there. I know it's hard. So those are my tips for working with your hypnagogic imagery. I hope that you guys got something out of this. It's been a lot of fun, and I think I might actually do more videos about the images themselves, because in my opinion, it's an access point for communication. I've been shown that very clearly. For communication, it's a place for accessing information that's outside of ourselves. I truly believe from the collective unconscious, and I do believe in remote viewing, and so I believe that you can use it for remote viewing as well. So that's my little idea of what's going on there, and I think it's a skill that we all have and that we can really, really hone. So I hope you're doing well, and I'll talk to you later.